when you have the information in SPC, you have to be able to link it to medicines, to a collection of medicines which is relevant for your country, for the therapeutic arsenal of your country. And not only the SPC needs to be structured if you want to establish a link, but also this arsenal needs a model, needs a structure. And only if you have those two structures linked, then you can have a result. As I said, I'm a GP and I work for a drug information center. I think it's important to state that for a conflict of interest. First, I would try to give an overview of all the databases in the European countries. In most of the 27 European member states, each of these member states has his own printed physician desk references and corresponding drug databases. So the SPC is not alone. The regulatory authorities may have one, reimbursement authorities may have one, the industry, pharmacist association, marketing research industry, e-health platform, the drug information centers, scientific publishing companies, they all have their databases in each of these countries. So that's a lot of databases next to the SPC. Among these drug databases, there are what I call independent drug databases, who are evidence-based and independent from commercial influence. They are all evolving to decision support, and there are potential candidates for an international network of independent drug information providers. The BNF in the UK, Janus in Sweden, in Belgium, BCIV, Duodecim in Finland, Rote List in Germany, Sphinx, and Pharmacological Compass in the Netherlands. There are others, I forget of them. But if you classify the international sources, you have the Formularia and the Pharmacopoeia, the BNF, the EDQM, European Pharmacopoeia. You have the summary of product characteristics, which has now become a truly international source through EMEA and the central registration. And you have international commercial companies like First Databank present here and UBM Media around the French Vidal. International knowledge databases, Sphinx and Duodecim, all trying to get on the European level and convince other countries to use their systems. And on the Semantic Web are also new resources like Drug Bank for bioinformatics from the Canadian government. This is a view from the Semantic Web with already in darker gray those things that are really relevant for medicine, already present now in this wonderful new information resource, the Semantic Web, Web.2. And there's a European project, Ponte, trying to exploit all these things. All these resources to show you that the physician desk reference is very important. This is from the Wellcome Library. It was a parchment hanging on the belt of a doctor in the medieval times, written with all kinds of things that need to be not forgotten. It has disappeared what is written on it, and it's all for the best because it's become completely obsolete. But just to show you how important all these information resources are, and the SPC is one of them. In some countries, and that's also important, the e-health platform have chosen to support one authentic source of medicine, one database for the country. It's the case of England with the UK Dictionary of Medicines and Devices run by an informatics department, and it's now also in Belgium, authentic source of medicines run by an independent drug information headed by a clinical pharmacologist, and it was launched a few months ago. I am sure that other countries will follow the same path, to have one database in the country for the e-health platform. So this database of medicines needs to have a structure, and we will propose, the next part of the presentation is an attempt to explain that model, which as we use it in Belgium, and as we have more or less copied that from the UK database. This is the model in 6 basic concepts. I will run you through the model in the next slides, but you will see on the left hand the word virtual therapeutic moiety, virtual medicinal product package, and on the right side, actual, actual therapeutic moiety, actual medicinal product, actual medicinal package. This model was developed in the UK, and we used it also in Belgium. On the website that is mentioned here is the full conceptual description, conceptual model, logic model, and technical model of this simple explication. Now, I think an example will tell more. On the left, on the top of the left is atenolol, which is a therapeutic moiety. It is represented by tenormin, which is a company name. Atenolol comes in 100 milligrams oral, to be used orally, and the package called tenormin 100 milligram tablets. There is a box of 28 tablets, and that's just enough for 1 month treatment. So this is how the model is constructed by example, and now I will run you through the model again, and we will first have this horizontal distinction, the 3 horizontal layers. First layer of the therapeutic moiety, the virtual therapeutic moiety and the actual therapeutic moiety. It is the level of the active ingredient. It is not the same as the active substance, which is the base and the salt, the combination of base and salt ester. It's an abstraction indicating that this therapeutic agent is on the market in Europe, and that there is a safety dossier, a European safety dossier, available called the Periodic Safety Update Report for this agent. And the list of these therapeutic moieties can be seen on the website of the heads of medicines agencies, on that website. It can be a combination of therapeutic agents, provided the combination is on the market. And I think this is a very good starting point for European integrated, to integrate the databases from Europe. Second level, horizontal level, adds 2 elements, strength and application. Very important. Application, strength is obvious, that's the dose. And application area is a combination of route of administration, pharmaceutical form, and whether or not there is a systemic intent for the drug. And that is really important to modulate the information. It's called the INN prescribing group. It is a group that the physician can prescribe with details enough to let the pharmacist then deal with details about pack size and company and price and things like that. But it is really at the pharmaceutical level. The next horizontal level is then the pack size. We can also have a vertical distinction where the actual all the 3 actual concepts are relevant for country and brand. This is specific for one country and specific for a company, while on the other hand, it is the pharmacological level, which is abstract from the country, which is abstract from the company, and can be dealt with at the European level. To give you some examples, we would link information linking to SNOMED and unstructured database on the high level of the virtual therapeutic moiety. If the knowledge bases are much more structured, we would link to a level lower, and also the clinical classification that is used in the country would come in that level. And if we go down, it would be interesting to make price and expenditure comparisons. On the other hand, ATM is the level where you have the reimbursement rules on the national level and the company SPCs, which sometimes are on the highest level, sometimes at the immediate level. The same is true for marketing authorization. It's not really clear at what level SPCs are made specific or not, and marketing authorizations are specific or not. To give you some examples, for Belgium with figures, we have about 7,365 different packages in our pharmacies, but it's only 1,400 therapeutic moieties. And the real choice for the physician is 3,000. So it would be interesting to have the same figures for all the countries of Europe, so that we can really compare our therapeutic arsenals in a numeric way. I will skip this. So I come to my conclusion. The point is that if we want to provide this decision support information, there is a lot present on the markets by different providers, and it's all kind of summarized in the SPC. It's overwhelming amount of information, and if we want to strike a balance between exhaustivity and clinical relevance, for instance, for decision support or alerts, that will be very tricky, and it will need the help of real experts, I think, experts of medicine, clinical pharmacologists. The e-SPC will help us to be exhaustive, to be sure that we have all the relevant information, even if it's not clinically relevant in most of the time. And E stands for electronic, but also for Europe, I think. It must be a summary of product characteristics at the European level. And the task to trim all that information down to what is really clinically relevant should be done probably more at the national level, by a drug information center or by others. Questions for the e-SPC is, how specific will the e-SPC be? Will it be at the virtual site or at the actual site? And this question is only relevant when there is more than one company selling the product. New products from one company in the central registration, there's only one company for 10 years. And then comes competitors and generics, and then is, where will that SPC for that product then be? It's an important question, I think. What level of specificity will we have for the e-SPC? Of course, the therapeutic ingredient, but will it be specific for any different pharmaceutical form, for any dose, for any company, for any country, for the excipients that are different from brand to brand, immediate packages, and pack size? So these are all questions to deal with. This is a slide that shows that decision support is really taking off now. ICT has become an unobtrusive part of the intricate relation between patient and physician with the new technology, hardware and software. But the question is, who's going to produce the evidence-based, correct and independent drug information in the decision supports for electronic prescribing and patient self-management of health? Who's going to do that? And how are we going to link that information to our national therapeutic arsenal of medicines? So that's some questions for the audience.
Thank you very much for this concise and important presentation. Linkage classification, standardized system, and how SPCs can interact. I think you put again the potential that the European institution have to go forward and renew, the healthcare system. And I think we really need to take this opportunity. That will give new businesses also, but also better patient care. So this is open for question, remarks, and we try, as in the previous presentation, to get some key messages to put forward. Please.
Hi, it's Brita Kourish from Elsevier. And first of all, to say again, I thought that was a very interesting presentation, and I think I have perhaps more an observation rather than a question, but which perhaps the speaker could comment in response. I think from one observation, I would say I was very pleased to see that the comment made at the start about the user being at the heart of this and looking at what are all the information resources which people are using already. I think it's worthwhile commenting that the information source people are using, there are of course many drug information sources, but we know as Elsevier being publishers of journals like The Lancet and many other clinical reference sources, we know for our engagement with users, they are of course not just using drug reference information in isolation. What they keep saying to us, it's really important that they can connect the drug data to the underlying primary literature, particularly where they're having to make a complex prescribing decision, perhaps they're considering going off-label or going for some unlicensed use of a drug. And for that, it's really important to mitigate the risk against that. They want to be able to connect from the drug and the disease condition to the underlying primary literature so they can build up an evidence base to inform their decision. We've actually had a lot of experience in recent years in the US where we do actually have a drug reference database called Clinical Pharmacology already. We've had to do an awful lot of work to basically build up our own ontology to connect the drug information to the clinical reference and reference textbooks. And we're now looking at doing something similar in the UK. So I think from the Elsevier perspective, we would absolutely want to support having access to the SPC data in an XML format is key, because accessing it through PDF and Word at the moment is a major barrier. Having greater consideration of having some sort of control terminology, be it SNOMED or something else, because that's the other issue we're finding, is trying to make the data reusable and reproducible across territories as well. If you can map it back to an internationally agreed code, be it SNOMED, be it ICD terms and so on, that would make a huge difference as well. So I'd just be interested if the speaker could comment on looking at that broader context beyond drug information sources, if he had any observations on that. Thank you.
There was one question to you, Bob.
I think the prescribers should have at their disposition not only a drug database, not only a decision support system, but also a virtual digital library. So that, I think, is the answer to your question. Yeah.
Please.
I would like to make one question back. So you said you have developed a lot of terminology and ontologies. Are they public available? Is there any possibility to link that to what we see in SPC?
Well, at the moment, I'd say that's been very much obviously an in-house initiative, and it's been our proprietary development, partly because what's out there in the market isn't giving us what we need. At the same time, the reason we're doing that is not just to make our own content sources interoperable, but to enable interoperability with other systems. So if anybody's interested in talking to us about that, come and find me at the break.
Can I follow up on that? Are you saying that the aim is to have that public available?
No. No, because obviously we're a commercial provider.
Because I think that's an important issue.
No, so the point I was making is that we publish very large information resources. So even internally, we need to be able to join those up together.
Okay.
But we know ours are not the only information sources used. So we are building our ontologies around published standards.
We can come back to this question later, I think. It's important.
Sure.
Yes, Bob, a quick question. Do you think about therapeutic objectives? Do you think that might be an entry point for accessing a dictionary of therapy?
A therapeutic objective is very seldom explicitly expressed even in the formularies or in the pharmacopoeias or even in the e-SPC. It's done systematically in the training of young students. They have to formulate their therapeutic objectives, but in the classical information resources, you will not find enough information to do this.
Please.
So I'm really not an expert in these ISO processes, but as far as I understood, there is a project ongoing on drug dictionaries, and perhaps the QID people could help me there. And so the other question would be, have you already evaluated the SPL project that is ongoing in the US? Because I think they already made this exercise that you are now starting here.
Just a quick answer. I think in Europe, there is the EPSOS project for drugs, for semantic interoperability and for cross-border electronic prescribing. Every e-health organization in the 27 member states is working on what is called reference terminology for health. So I think a lot is going to happen in the next years in this regard. And I think we should, of course, learn as much as possible from projects abroad.
Okay, we would. Please.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It was excellent, and it's very important indeed to highlight the need to strike the balance between exhaustivity and clinical relevance. It's an observation that we made also 2 years ago when we made a survey with patient and healthcare professional organization on their need on benefit and risk information on medicine. This report is published on our website, and one outcome was that both patient and healthcare professional want both simple, easy to read information, short for daily practice, and all information for treating more specific cases with, for example, patients with comorbidities. We have more and more medicine, we have more and more knowledge, we have more and more comorbidities. People want more and more information. It's important to provide the information in an easy way for a patient. At the level of the regulatory authorities, not only the summary of product characteristics, but also the package leaflet and the labeling are part of the marketing authorization and are addressed respectively to healthcare professionals and patients for daily use, but also we are transparent in the data that we review in publishing a public assessment report. And it is important to create a link between this summary of product characteristics, the tool for safe and effective use in daily practice of the document, with the more complete and transparent information that we are providing in the assessment report. Last, of course, I think with the recent new pharmacovigilance legislation, it's important to highlight that this issue has been taken into account, since the European Commission will prepare a report on the readability of a summary of product characteristics and labeling to see how it suits the consumer and whether it could be improved. Thank you.
Thank you. And a short final comment before closing.
Okay, I will just to comment on the question on ISO. Thank you for the question, it's quite relevant here, I think. Now, there is a project in ISO that is going to be finalized very soon. We are talking about a few months now. We are at the final draft standard for a package of ISO standards that is called IDMP, Identification of Medicinal Product. Basically, this will create the way in which ISO is defining the proper way to identify a medicine, a substance, and all this kind of element. Now, the European Medicine Agency is established on the 1st of July, followed by another publication on the 1st of September. The standard that you are going to use until the ISO it will be implemented for the collection of the medicinal product in all Europe. So basically we are creating, supported by the Article 57 of the new regulation, the new pharmacological regulation, a drug dictionary. And I think that this is something that the e-SPC project should take into account in order to have a consolidated dictionary of medicine. Another element to take in consideration is that the new ISO database, when it will be implemented later on, so we are talking about a couple of years from now in the plan, we need also to integrate the e-SPC element. We have already the indication, for instance, the packaging in all these in this dictionary. So a lot of the elements are already there. So I don't know if I answer the question and I give some comment.
Oh. So thank you very much. Some quick summary. Thank you for linking this e-SPC project to a classification system so you can use the information. We have discussed the need, and I think it's self-evident that you need to have access to other guidelines and information. We have also discussed how open various type of standards should be. I think it's a question, and we got a number of inputs.